Hello, this is Turdlobber with Turdlobber's Magic Bazaar, and I'm needing your guys' help today. One of my previous videos, I was asking you guys all who is your favorite commander and kind of explaining why. One of my favorite commanders currently is old Bristly Bill. If you're not familiar with him, he is from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. He is 1 green and a float, and he is a plant druid. He has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And then you can spend 5, 2 green, 3 float to double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. So obviously you can make your board state pretty big, and then you apply trample to those creatures, and as long as they don't have death touch or a way to negate that, your creatures kind of just come through with a ton of damage. So I've been working on upgrading the deck, and I need your guys' help on what else I should add, as well as a few good counter options that I may have choices of. I have upgraded the deck recently with a few creatures, as well as enchants and equipments, so we're going to go over those. But if you're willing to help me on this, you can jump over to MoxField and search for Turdlobber over there, and you'll find my profile. And I currently have my Bristly build deck and then my Omnath for my 5-color deck uploaded, and would love any feedback on either one of those. So let's go ahead and get into some of these cards that I've recently put into the deck. Alright, getting into some of those cards that I've recently thrown into Bristly Bill and replaced some of the lower synergy cards. I did recently crack open 2 Foundation collector boxes, so most of these upgrade cards did come out of there. A few of them were just in random decks or laying around in my collection, so I threw those in as well. One of the new cards I added was the Leyline Axe, the borderless version. This did come from Foundations, so this is an artifact equipment for 4, and then the equip cost is 3, but if this card is in your hand in your at opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield, so that's a huge advantage if this is in your starting hand. And then your equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. So for obvious reasons, that's really good for the +1/+1s on Bristly Bill or another creature I decide to attach it to. The double strike as well as that trample can really help end the game. The second card I've thrown in here, and this was also from Foundations, was the Sylvan Scavenging. This is an enchantment for 2 green and 1 float, and it is at the beginning of your end step, choose 1. You can put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, or create a 3/3 green raccoon creature token if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So the reason I threw this in is an obvious one, is for those +1/+1 counters at the end step. So once again, just more 1/1s I'm getting to throw out there on my creatures. And then if I'm lacking creatures on my board, I can always choose to throw a 3/3 out there, green raccoons. That way my board isn't so limited on creatures, because previously I was really struggling where if a board wipe happened and killed 3-4 of my creatures, where really I only had Bristly Bill at that point. So I'm hoping with an enchantment like this that will hopefully kind of fill that gap a little bit. The next card I added here was the Quilled Greatworm. This is for 4 float and 2 green. This is a 7/7, it has trample, and then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many 1/1 counters on it. So obviously with the whole point of this being building 1/1s on my creatures and potentially giving them trample, or like double strike or anything like that, this could really go heavy. So say for instance I put Leyline Axe on this Great Worm, it's now would be an 8/8 with double strike, and it already has trample, so it would say double case of trample. But if they could only block with a 2/2, it'd be double striking, so a total of 16 damage, but they'd be blocking 2, so he'd get 14 1/1s. Counters put on him, and then if Bristly Bill were out on my turn, I could then double those counters either that turn or the next turn, turning this Quilled Greatworm into quite the threat. Alright, I also pulled Innkeeper's Talent out of one of my Bloomburrow decks that I had. So this is for 1 green and a float to get the level 1 version out. And the great thing about these enchantment classes, unlike sagas, is once they hit the level 3, they don't just exile. Some of them have, you know, a case where it might trigger only level 2 or only level 1, but for Innkeeper's Talent's sake, all 3 of these are useful. So at level 1, at the beginning of my combat, on my turn, I can put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So once again, just like the previous cards I've shown, this is just continuing that value of adding 1/1s to my creatures. If I pay an extra green, I can level this up to 2, so that way any creature I control that has a counter on it would now have ward 1, so that will help, you know, alleviate them annihilating my board with target spells. And then level 3 here for 3 float and a green. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. So if it's at level 3 and I double up on Bristly Bill, instead of being double the amount of triggers, it's going to be 4 times that many. So, you know, those 14 that would have triggered on the Quilled Great Worm, for instance, with if he had Leyline Axe, would have now been 28. So super good return there for the mana value. Another one I threw in here was Loot. This was from Foundations as well. It is a 1/4 Beast Noble, 1 green, 2 float, and he just gives me the ability to play an additional land on each of my turns. So with Bristly Bill being based around landfall, that could be a potential extra 1/1 that I get to play out each turn if I have the lands available in hand. And then his ability here, I can spend 4 float, 2 green, then tap him, look at the top 6 cards of my library. I may reveal a creature card with a mana value less than or equal to the number of lands I control among them, and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest of them in the at the bottom in a random order. So, you know, if I have just some free retrieval, so if I have so many lands, I could potentially get a Quilled Great Worm for free. I have some other great creatures in here, if you check it out on MoxField, that you'd see as well. So just good value there, as well as the double lands on turn is the biggest reason I wanted him. Then I have Mossborn Hydra that I've added to the deck recently. So this is a green and a 2 float. I did pull this one from Foundations. It is an elemental Hydra. It does have trample already, so just keep building with that synergy of either giving my things trample or they already have trample on them to make my mono green board state a little scarier. This creature enters with a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of 1/1 counters on this creature. So similar to Bristly Bill, the Hydra is going to get huge value off of loot if I'm able to play 2 lands a turn, because I could essentially play him if Bristly Bill's already out, then play a land for turn, play another land for turn. So then this guy would be triggering twice off of his own ability, and Bristly Bill's landfall would also be triggering twice. So I could potentially throw out a bunch of 1/1s in one turn if I had 2 lands and both these creatures ready to go out. And the last card that I'd like to talk about that I recently added is Evolution Sage. It is 2 float and a green. This is a 3/2 elf druid with landfall as well. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, I can proliferate. So if you do not know what proliferate does, it just allows me to choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind they already have. So similar to the other cards I spoke on all these +1/+1 counters, this is going to allow me to double all those that are already on those creatures. So this, paired with some of these other cards that you'd seen just moments ago, would be a great addition to Bristly Bill. I've not played Bristly Bill since adding these cards and a few others. So once again, if you're able to and so kindly, check out my profile on MoxField and give me any cards that you'd recommend taking out that just don't synergize great, and then what cards you'd potentially replace those with. Same thing with my Omnath deck. I haven't played that one yet. I actually just got the cards in for that today. So I'm gonna look through it a little more, play test it, before I ever actually play it in a Commander game with my buddies. With that being said, out of these cards, which one do you think is the most powerful on the new additions to the Bristly Bill deck? Also, if you have not already joined the Discord, liked, and subscribed to this video, please do so now. If you join the Discord, we are looking for people to play Spell Table with throughout the week, as well as on the weekends. And also bounce deck ideas off of each other, post our MoxField links, that way we can check each other's decks out easily. Outside of that, thank you guys for watching, and once again, just drop any recommendations down in the comments. Have a good night.